So, Coach, just to start out, how do you feel about how spring practice went?
I feel good. I think I said this the other day. I think we're where I hoped we would be at this point. Um, Knowing that we still have a long ways to go. Thought we made a ton of progress. Um, I think our kids understand what our standard is, what our expectations are, and that's been very clear throughout spring. I think they've um, bought into what we're doing. I think they've embraced the new staff and thought the energy was phenomenal through spring ball. Thought it was very successful. A ton of good work in. We had close to 750, 11 on 11 reps throughout 15 practices in spring. So really felt like we maximized our time. I thought our players handled it really well, and I'm pleased with where we're at.
How much over the course of spring practice was it? I know you have to, teach the players a new offense, install what you want to install. But with the new staff, how much work were you able to get done just uh, for you guys learning how to handle your business? I know you're wearing headsets while you're calling plays towards the end of practice. How much of that coordination do you feel like you were able to work on this spring?
A lot. I think there's not as much change on the defensive side of the football. Obviously, the thing that's new for Coach Volker is calling it, and so to get as much of that, to call it from the hip as opposed to everything being scripted throughout practice. Wanted to get a lot of that done during spring. We were able to do that, and so that's why you saw a lot of the headsets out there. Just the communication piece, obviously, is so important. And then especially in the offensive side of the football, we're signaling everything from the sideline. So the coordination of that with all the new language and verbiage that we're using, working through the kinks of that. But I thought it was good. Got a lot of work done in regards to that.
I know in the past you kind of have periods where the offense would look something more like you would see in conference play, and not just so the defense got a different look other than the option, just to help them prepare. Were you able to do that as much this spring, or with installing a new offense? Did you really want to maximize that time for the offense?
Well, we wanted to maximize that time for the offense. In the past, Mike, we've self-served a little bit and the scripted things, and we've drawn stuff up as defensive coaches that the offense would run in practice. Didn't need to do that this spring. There was enough under center, enough gun work. They had enough on their menu to really give us everything that we needed to see in the course of practice. So I thought that was really good, that they didn't have to service us. They weren't running routes or concepts that they don't run. They were getting good at the things that they do. And we were at the same time seeing enough to be able to do everything that we want to be able to do on defense.
Hey, Coach.
Mhm.
For those who just joined us, we're doing 3 questions each. Scott Wyckoff.
Coaches, you now go to the off season preparing for fall camp. What was the biggest takeaway as you think about what this team did on the field over the 4 and 5 weeks of practice?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is just establishing our brand and our style of football. I talked about the expectation, what the standard is, and the way that we practice. And was really pleased with the way that our kids responded to that and embraced that. And I thought, and you were out at several practices, Scott, the energy was outstanding. All throughout spring football. From the first day. If you were out there on the last day, the energy level didn't drop off. And so that was a point of emphasis for us. I want to make sure we took advantage of every opportunity that we had. And every day wasn't perfect, but we had 15 solid practices. And we haven't always used all 15 here in spring, and feel like we certainly needed to do that. And there wasn't a day that we went out that I didn't think that we got better in some way, shape, or form.
Now that you've set the bar for them, what is their focus as football players between now and when they come back for fall camp?
Yeah. Well, obviously the strength conditioning piece is going to be really, really important over the course of the summer. Coach Curtsey has a great plan. We'll continue to do some practices through the month of June. We get some time with those guys and want to keep what we've got in fresh in their heads and continue to install and build on what we've done. But really critical if these guys have a great summer, coming to fall camp in great shape, and we can hit the ground running as opposed to having to have a refresh.
What kind of a benefit was it for you to have Coach Ashley as your assistant head coach through this spring camp?
It's been great. You know, he's been here for a long, long time. He knows this place as well as anybody. He's seen a little bit of everything, and so it's always good to be able to bounce some things off of him, some big picture things. So been very beneficial for me.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Wags.
We need to update your picture back there, Wags. It's about 20 years ago.
That's my press pass. Nothing I can. Can you talk about Teddy Gleaton? He comes out of spring camp at top the depth chart at quarterback. What did Teddy show you during the spring?
Yeah, showed us a lot. Really pleased with Teddy. You know, I mentioned the amount of reps we got throughout the course of spring. And you guys know that, you know, there are 3 quarterbacks getting those reps, and Teddy and Blake got the majority of those reps. I'd say he probably got 300 plus 11 on 11 reps, and needed all of them, and but made a lot of progress. I think Teddy's really talented. Has a really good arm, can make all the throws we need him to make. Has got to work on some of the decision making, which comes with reps and experience, and but really pleased with some of the things that I saw him do. Really flashed a bunch in spring, and like the other quarterbacks, I still have a ways to go, but excited about him and his future.
So with adding some new passing elements, ways to stretch the field and maybe get people the ball, does Teddy kind of is that he kind of fit that mold, a guy who can throw it around a little bit?
He does. He fits that mold exactly. He allows you to do a lot of things offensively that you'd like to be able to do here. When you're talking about a guy that can make every throw that, you know, a traditional quarterback can make, then you add the athletic ability piece to that equation. It really allows us some flexibility on what we can do and how we can expand and evolve the offense. Moving forward, we want to recruit quarterbacks that can throw it as well as they run it, and Teddy can do that.
Well, I was going to ask about the running piece. I mean, has he shown you that he can be a dangerous threat with the ball in his hands, running option style quarterback keepers and stuff?
As you know, we didn't let those quarterbacks go live throughout spring. Didn't want to risk getting those guys hurt. We knew they needed all the reps they could get. So a lot of quick whistles, but you certainly saw flashes. I think he's got really good vision. He's a bigger quarterback. You know, he's 6 foot plus. He's 215 pounds. He's a physical presence. I wish we could have taken the red jersey off of him to see how he'd finish some of those runs, but I'm excited about that piece of it. I think for sure he's going to be an effective runner as well.
And last for me for now, so with Xavier and Ty coming back in August, I presume Ty is going to be, do you expect that he'll be ready to start camp at the beginning of camp? He'll be recovered?
Yeah, I do. He made a lot of progress, and I think he's a little bit ahead of schedule. And you know, he was doing some things there at the end of spring as far as just throwing the ball around, doing some mechanical things. I think when we start on June 5th, I mean, he should be full go. So excited about him. And I think we've had right now with the 2 young guys getting all those reps, and Draymond Ponder getting a ton of reps too, with X and Ty coming back. I mean, we're going to have a good battle there at quarterback with, you know, 2 guys coming back that have a lot of experience, guys that have won games for us. So I don't know that we've had this kind of depth at quarterback, you know, since I've been here.
But clearly a long way before settling on who's going to start against Notre Dame.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's unfortunate that Xavier didn't get to do much during spring football, but he'll be back and healthy, and I'm looking forward to that competition. And it's still wide open.
Thanks.
Pete.
Coach, how soft is that depth chart that you put out, and how much is there any position at all that you can think of there is a great distance between guys on the top line and guys on the bottom line?
Yeah, I'd say it's a really soft depth chart. And I think Strauss would tell you, I really didn't want to put a depth chart out at this point, but felt like people deserve to see some form of an organizational chart. But I told our players, we're going to put out a depth chart, but it doesn't mean a whole lot. We got a lot of summer, we got a lot of fall camp left. And, the good thing, to answer your second part of your question, is we've got some depth at a lot of positions. And a lot of those positions, there's not a ton of drop off, which is awesome. And there's certainly some positions where there is. We got to create and establish some more solid depth. But yeah, it's a pretty soft depth chart, Pete.
Wide receiver, there are some names in interesting places. That seems to be a place where, is that because of depth that has been accumulated at that position right now? Because you do have some proven performers, guys that have done some things who aren't necessarily on that top line right now.
Well, we were banged up, wide receiver going through spring. Obviously, Nathan Kent was running track. Umbarger was out the majority of spring with an injury. Cody Howard, same thing. But there's certainly some good players at those positions. Unfortunately, some of those guys didn't get to participate, in spring ball, and the depth chart kind of indicates a little bit of that.
For those that weren't with us on Sunday and didn't hear what you have to say, the fact that Lyrion and Will chosen to lead this football team, you know how important internal leadership is. Thoughts on those two being given that opportunity?
Yeah, I think they'll be exceptional in their roles. We vote on those things, but in my experience, sometimes as a staff, as a head coach, you kind of have to manipulate that a little bit. You may agree or disagree on what the majority of your team votes for, but in these two cases, both those guys got a vast majority of the votes, and that's really what you want to see. And it really, on the defense side of the ball, wasn't even close. And offensively, there were several guys that were in that mix, but Lyrion was far and away the lead vote getter there. So really pleased with the way our team voted. I think they're right on the money as far as who they selected.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Joe Miller.
Hey, Coach, I wanted to ask about, usually when new coaches come in, they talk about a clean slate, and you have the unique ability of you come in and a lot of the players here. What was your evaluation process? Did you want to just say, hey guys, this is clean slate, or how did you balance the fact that you knew most of these guys coming in to being part of a new coaching staff with a new philosophy? How did you balance that?
Yeah, personally, I always like the slate to be clean going into spring ball. I want everybody to feel like they're on even playing ground. Everybody to feel like they've got an opportunity. And when you have a new staff, you really want to allow those guys to form their own opinions and have their own view of things. And obviously, as you get going, you have some of your preconceived notions about certain players and what your thoughts are on those guys. But it's important to the players that they get a little bit of a fresh start when there's a change. And that was the opportunity to do that. And you have 6 new coaches. You want to get their thoughts. You don't want them to go into having any preconceived notions about certain players and having any biases or anything like that. And so I thought that part was really good.
Yeah, I was going to sort of ask that too, sort of how you mix the new and the old on the coaching staff when it comes to evaluations, when it comes to a lot of things. Is it a situation where you want to hear more for some of the newer coaches just to get maybe flush some things out that you weren't thinking about?
Yeah, I think those guys see things with a fresh set of eyes. In regards to your players, their abilities, and the way they learn, the way they do everything, as well as what you're doing offensively and defensively, and the fresh perspectives that they have on those things. So I thought it was great. We want all of our coaches to have a voice in what we're doing. I think Coach Volker and Coach Chestnut, those guys don't have big egos, and they want to do what's best for our football team. And so everybody you know, in the offensive and defensive room, has a voice and has an opinion that's valued. And you know, we always say around here, there's power in counsel. And so to work through spring ball and really build an offense from scratch, which is pretty unique and interesting, and enjoyed watching that, being a part of that. But yeah, it's great to have new coaches for a lot of reasons, and those are a couple of them.
I know the work certainly doesn't stop now. What are the things that you want to accomplish as a program, as a staff, before you hit fall practice?
I think just to continue getting better at the things that we've been working on. You know, you go into summer and you want your kids to continue to get better at the fundamentals, and we'll be able to guide some of those workouts, and some of those workouts they'll do on their own. But we talk about, you know, mastering the 4 core skill sets at each position that we've determined that we need to be good at to be successful, and our kids know what those are, and we're focused on those. And so we continue to get better at mastering their craft, getting stronger in the weight room. We've made a ton of progress, you know, since December. We maxed out last week, and the improvement and the numbers is really off the charts. We maxed out on bench and squat, vertical jump, and the numbers, even though, you know, we went through 4th quarters in spring football, they've continued to climb, which is a great credit to Coach Carizzi and the staff. But how much stronger, how much faster, how good a shape can we be in when fall camp starts? So I'm excited about the plan for that this summer. And then, just like I said, those kids would be doing a lot of things on their own, but continue to get better at the things that we've been working on.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, we'll make another trip around. Again, 3 questions each. Mike James.
So kind of changing gears a little bit. The transfer portal has been in the news a lot lately. I'm wondering how that you look at that as far as recruiting goes. Is that a message that you send to guys that, look, we're not going to bring in transfers to take your place, so we're committed to developing you? Is that a message that you take in recruiting to kind of give, you know, help guys feel like they're going to really have a home?
Absolutely. I think it's a great message to the players that we're recruiting. We're still truly a developmental program. We're not going to go in the portal to out recruit you. I think it's a great message on the recruiting road. But I think, you know, we've had a lot of conversations about this. I think the portal in some ways helps us. Obviously, if we lose a player in the portal, we can't go out and replace them, and that obviously hurts. And you're always worried about your really good players getting poached. But I think what the portal's allowed us to do as a program, there's not as many opportunities for high school players as there used to be because of that portal. And so I think that's allowing us to go out and recruit a little bit better product than maybe we have in the past. And so I think there's some benefits to the portal for us as well.
You're looking at the tight end position. You have Thomas Scully at the top of the depth chart. I'm just kind of wondering what he's shown relative to what you're expecting out of the position that he's shown you.
Sure. Well, you know, Scully was a linebacker when he got here, and last year during the season, we didn't have a lot of tight ends for the scout team, and so he was down on the defensive side of the field, and we used him as an H-back tight end guy, and really got after us. You know, he was a really good blocker, physical. Was really impressed with some things that he did, and so it was kind of a natural move for us to move him to tight end. But it's a new position for him, obviously. But he's a great kid, very unselfish guy, and was willing to do whatever he could to help our football team. And he's embraced the role, and you know, I think worked his way up the depth chart in spring. Great work ethic. He's really physical. He's still learning the position, but a lot of promise. Thought he did a really good job this spring.
Thanks, Coach.
Scott Wyckoff. You're muted, Scott. You're muted.
Coach, I know you experimented with a number of players during spring camp. Did it give you something to think about with your staff over the summer before you come back in the fall?
Yeah, I think the two places where we kind of experimented the most probably were on the O-line and a little bit in the secondary. You're always trying to juggle O-linemen to figure out the best possible places for those guys. We had some guys playing tackle that are probably going to play guard. We're probably going to move one of our guards to center, experiment with some of that type stuff. And so that was good. I think we moved some guys around in the secondary. Jackson Campbell was a kid that we moved from wide receiver to defensive back in the offseason. Did some really good things. And so he's played some high safety. We worked him in at striker the last week and a half or so, and showed a lot of promise there. And so yeah, that's the time to do it in spring football. And we did some of it, some other positions too, but those were kind of the notable position groups where you can kind of juggle some guys around and try to figure out how to get your best players on the field and in the right position.
And is that the fairest way also to do it for them? Because it also gives them these few months to really get their head wrapped around what they might be doing.
Yeah, that's a great question, because a guy like Jackson Campbell, who's been playing wide receiver, you don't want to put too much on his plate. So we moved him from, he played free safety, he played bandit, he played striker, which I hesitate to do that because you want to let him go and focus on one thing. But he was able to pick all of it up pretty good. We threw a lot at him, and I think sometimes when you can play multiple positions, it helps you learn the one position even better, because you get a better understanding overall of the defense, where your help is, what other people are doing. So we try to be careful in regards to that, not doing too much, but also that's the time to do it if you're going to do it. And I thought that it was really good for Jackson. Wasn't too much for him to handle, but he handled it well, and it's going to benefit him in the long run, even though if it was a little difficult for him to do in the spring.
Is the goal now for you and your coaching staff to take this time that you have so you can hit the ground running when you return for fall practice for Notre Dame?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question, Scott?
Is the goal now for you and your staff to really take the time that you have amongst yourselves before fall practice starts, that when you hit fall practice that you can really hit the ground running with the focus on Notre Dame?
Yeah, I do. And like I said earlier, I know our guys are on the road recruiting now. We'll reconvene, at the end of the month, and going into June. We're going to have some time with our guys, and so we'll continue to meet with those guys, to install, and offensively, we don't have everything in yet. We've probably got 65% or so of the menu of what we'll carry into Notre Dame on August 26th. So we still got some work to do, and which is good. And the summer is going to be structured a little differently than it has in the past, and we want to keep all this stuff fresh in our guys' minds and continue to install more so on offense and defense. But we still got some things to do defensively as well. But yeah, the goal is to keep everything fresh in their minds, continue to grow, continue to learn for those guys, and continue to install the things that we're doing.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Wags.
The one guy, when I'm looking at this depth chart at slot back, Fabian France, we'd heard some good things when talking to the slot backs coach, and just, in various settings, we heard that he was doing well. What can you say about this Fabian France guy that enabled him to jump up to the top of the depth chart out of nowhere?
Yeah, really impressed with Fabian. We recruited him as a corner. Didn't play running back in high school, and he's transitioned really, really well. I think he's one of the smartest guys in that room. Picked everything up really well. He's pretty dynamic. He's a 21 mile an hour per guy on the catapult, pretty consistently, and so he's got a ton of ability. He's really smart. And he's a willing and able blocker too. Pretty well-rounded slot, but really pleased with his progress.
One guy that I noticed is not on the depth chart is Kai Puiloa Rojas. Was that injury related? Was he not participating? Because he was, he's been a key guy for the last couple seasons.
Yeah, well, Kai, I think, will certainly be in the mix. he's got some things like a lot of guys do that he needs to get better at and improve on, particularly when the ball is not in his hands. But he's obviously a capable slot. He's played a lot of snaps for us. We'll continue to get better, but I expect Kai to be in the mix this fall.
Last year, Sam Glover was the starter at left tackle. You flopped. Why did you decide to go with? I guess McMahon ended up starting a lot at left tackle too. So, I mean, was there? I think you all played around with using people at both tackles positions. How did it sort out that you decided to go that way?
Yeah, I think I think what Coach Chestnut's thoughts are on that is you want your best pass protector to be your left tackle. Connor McMahon was, I think, the most impressive lineman through spring ball, and I think that would be the reason for that move. But obviously, both those guys can play on both sides. It's pretty interchangeable for us.
And then defensive wise, the two positions that you had lost starters or are going to be graduating, Raider and Striker, are you pretty pleased with what, how that's shaking out? I think Sanders is at Raider and Xavier at Striker, but I think that James Perkins is probably pushing Sanders, and I would say it's probably similar over there at Striker with Turner Stepp and Xavier.
Yeah, I'd say yes and no. I think at Raider we've got a lot of really good, athletic, capable bodies over there. Jordan didn't go through spring because of a shoulder injury. He's healed up from that. He's in good shape right now, but he looks really good. He's 230 pounds. He had 40-inch vertical the other day. Really impressive physically. Played snaps for us last year. Really excited about him. Wish he could have gone through spring ball, but then you look at the rest of those guys. Perk had a good spring. Luke Pierce had a good spring. Spelios is a guy that's going to be in the mix there at Raider as well. So we're as athletic at that position, Bill, as we've been since I've been here. So I'm excited about that. Obviously, you lose the production with Straw, who played a ton of snaps for us. But athletically, we should be better there. At Striker, we're still in the process trying to figure that out. Xavier McDonald did some good things. As I mentioned earlier, we moved Jackson Campbell over there. He was impressive playing Striker in the spring. Kenny McShann is a guy that's played linebacker that tore his ACL, run down on a kickoff this past season. He'll be back. He's a linebacker, probably the most athletic guy in that room that could go out and play Striker. So we've got some options there and some things that we're going to have to continue to play with there at Striker. That's obviously a really important position for us and what we do defensively. But that's still a work in progress.
So at corner, I'm sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
Elias Larry was a starter last year. It looks like Andrew Duhart has overtaken him at the boundary corner. Duhart showed a lot in the spring.
He really did. I'm really impressed with him. It was a guy that was a play away from going in the fall as a freshman, but had a great off season. Did some really good things this spring. I think of all the position groups, Bill, that corner group is probably the most improved in an area where it's been a deficiency for us. And I think coming out of spring is an area where we're going to have a pretty good amount of depth. I really feel good about 5 of those guys. Elias had a really good spring. He was in the conversation for being one of the most improved players. And so was Duhart. So we had some good competition, a lot of improvement there, and some guys coming back to play a lot of snaps for us. Unfortunately, some of those guys got a little banged up in the spring, but they should all be back ready to go. But excited about the growth at that position group and what we've got coming back.
And then at fullback, I think Alex Techa was the guy that people talked about during the spring, and he's now number 2. Now, Logan Point, did he not participate in spring? Was he sitting out?
No, he did. He was a little banged up, but he participated. We've got some depth at that T-back position now. Daba had a really good spring. Alex Texa was another guy that was in that conversation for the most improved. Really, really impressed with some of the things that he did in spring ball. Excited about him.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Joe Miller.
Yeah, Coach, I just had one more question. I wanted to ask about, obviously we've talked about making minor adjustments and changes to the offense. How different for the slot backs are you asking them to do this year as opposed to what they've done in the past? And has that changed to sort of what your depth chart and how you want to set up what the slot backs do going forward?
It's a good question. It hasn't changed a ton. We're doing more formationally. We align those guys in the slot more than we have in the past. A little more in the pass game has been put on them than has been in the past. But as far as what we do, running the football from a blocking standpoint, doing a lot of the same things. Some of the things we do, the way we block things on the perimeter, the way we rule it out, the way it's taught, it's different. But doing quite a bit more formationally. So it was a lot on their plates. And probably the biggest learning curve was maybe 4 of those slots during spring. But they made progress. They picked it up well.
Thanks, Coach.
Got 3 minutes. Time for one more question if it's really quick. Anyone else?
Do you like Scott's beard?
I think it looks outstanding. Yeah. I'm a little jealous of Scott's beard right now, to be honest.
I got one more real quick, Coach. You had some attrition. I mean, losing the big guy of nose guard. What's my guy with wear his glasses? What did we call it?
The executioner.
The executioner.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, losing Nolan was a tough loss, having to medically,
Yeah.
stop playing. But you're very young behind Biscuit. These 2 sophomores, Robinson and Whiteside. Are you concerned about your depth at nose behind Donald?
Yeah, I'm really not. It certainly hurt to lose Nolan. Nolan was a really good player, played our style of football, did a lot of good things for us last year. It was a concern going into spring. Landon Robinson had an outstanding spring. A similar size to Biscuit. He's built a little different than Biscuit. And I would say that he's farther along right now as a freshman than Biscuit was when he was a freshman, and that's saying quite a bit. So really excited about some things that he did. And Kendall had a good spring too, got a ton better. He's a kid's going to be a good player for us. And, if he's your third nose, you're feeling really good about the depth in there.